Hi, friends. It's Will, and I'm here with another tarot reading today. And the question we're going to ask is, should you continue trying to make progress in your current job, or is it time to make a decision and take a new path, find something new? So I have my deck here, the Squid Cake Tarot, which I love so much. And I've chosen 3 stones. I've got first the Orca Agate, Selenite, and Flower Agate. I've separated the major arcana from the deck, and I have them all here. I've been shuffling them. I'm now going to continue to shuffle them so that you can see that I'm doing it. And then I'll cut this deck and pull out 3 cards. These will be the significators for the reading. And I'll pair one with each of these stones. Let's see. Okay. All right. So let's lay them down. This will go with the Orca Agate. This is with the Selenite. And this is with the Flower Agate. Okay. So let's take a peek. With the Orca Agate, we have strength. So if this calls to you, then this will be your reading. With the Selenite, we have the Sun. And if that calls to you, that will be the significator for your reading. And finally, with the Flower Agate, we have the Emperor. And if the Emperor calls to you, then that card will be the significator for your reading, number 3. So think about your current job, the position that you're in, the problems that you've got with it, maybe the things that you like about it. Does it provide stability? Do you feel like you need to be very strong to be there or strong to leave? Do you feel like something's been illuminated in the current position that's making you think about it differently? Do you think that it provides structure? And please consider which one you'd like to do. 1, 2, or 3. And I'll see you in your reading. Okay, hello group 1 and welcome to your reading. You chose the Orca Agate and the Strength card. And I'm going to do something a little different today that I haven't done before. I've got my deck and I've been shuffling it, of course, as in the past. I'm going to use a different spread though. Instead of laying out a 9-card portrait spread, I'm going to lay out 3 cards for each option. So the first 3 cards are going to refer to your current position, like the job that you currently have, that you're currently in. Okay, and they're going to give us a little snapshot, a little sentence that helps to describe sort of where you're at now and what would happen if you were to stay, right? Like what you should be thinking about if you were to stay in that position. And then I'll lay out another 3 cards, and those 3 will give us a snapshot of what to think about if you were to leave your current position and look for something new. Take a new path, reach a crossroads, take the road less traveled. So, because of the layout here, I think what I'd like to do is let's place this in the middle. Cut the deck. Okay. And let's lay out 3. Let's do them like this, and we'll have you in the middle. Okay, so this is for your current position, Knight of Cups. Knight of Cups. Okay, so this makes me think you are making some good progress. You're taking action, and you're trying to make it be fulfilling. The other thing that's possible with the Knight of Cups, the Knight of Cups can get stuck in a fantasy. The Knight of Cups is very intuitive, in touch with their feelings, and can sometimes get carried away by that. So, do you have a fantasy at your current job that it's something that it really isn't? How in touch are you really? Is it actually fulfilling or not? And maybe it is, right? But is it? That's the question I would ask. I also noticed that the knight is looking left to the past. Was it fulfilling? And is it still? Is it going to take you somewhere in the future? 5 coins. Has there been a change in the ordinary everyday circumstances of the job? Like, are you having to take on more duties than you have in the past? Maybe little things that you're not very passionate about, but like you've had to do for one reason or another, maybe because somebody else has left and now you have to take over these everyday duties? Or is the job not paying enough? 5 coins can sometimes be read as the card of poverty, the card of people being out in the cold, not having enough resources to get by, to survive, to thrive. Does the job support you? Does it give you the material resources that you need to live your life or not? Justice. So underneath all of that, we have justice. So this means you've got a decision to make. And you're weighing your options. And I suppose you wouldn't be here if that weren't true to some extent. So what can this card add? Well, justice is about using your mind rather than your heart to make decisions. Notice how Justice's sword sticks straight up in the air. It's not pulled to one side or the other, as the swords on some cards are. So Justice is rational, intelligent, reasonable, looks at facts, doesn't focus on what they're feeling. And for some people, that's really hard. And, I would say you should pay attention to your feelings when you're making decisions, because that is additional information that maybe you can't verbalize, maybe you can't put it into words, but your body knows something and you're feeling it, you have an emotion about it, and that's real information that you should take into account. But here, these cards are saying something else, I think. These are saying, be in touch with your feelings, sure, but be careful that they're not helping you create a fantasy of believing something about your current situation that isn't actually true, when underneath it, it's unstable materially and maybe financially. And the everyday tasks that you're doing are maybe allowing you to get by, maybe, but are you fulfilled? And is there a future here? Nobody here is looking to the future. Justice looks you straight in the face. The Knight of Cups is looking to the past. So Justice, I think, is saying you should use your mind and maybe take a break from relying on feelings. Look the situation straight forward. Don't think about how it used to be. Don't think about how it makes you feel. Weigh your options, right? And consider whether it makes sense to leave. Okay, let's see what happens when we lay out 3 more cards on the other side. And so these will represent what to think about, what to consider in the event that you were to decide to leave your current position and look for something else. Well, we've got a Court card of Cups again. But she's not a knight anymore. She's a queen. She has grown into a queen. That is pretty telling, isn't it? And she's still looking to the left. She's still looking back. Right? Maybe she's looking back at how far she's come. But notice the knight has nothing in the left hand. And now she's got this staff. And she can use this staff. It represents her power. Right? It represents her wisdom and her knowledge. It's something that she can use to defend herself. It's something she can use maybe to delegate to others. It represents some advancement, some achievement that she has made in the world. Her cup is even bigger. See, here it's like a mug, and here it's like a taller cup. And also the what do we call it? Steam rising out of it has kind of a heart shape, right? So she's formed a heart to some extent. Also notice the ground she's on. Well, number one, she's on a chair, right? Like a throne. It's more stable. It's got 4 legs instead of being on these squid arms, which do look like a lot of fun, I have to say, but don't look very stable. And the illustration indicates like they're moving, and it maybe feels like you could fall off of them at any time. And look at how uneven the ground is. I mean, this would be very difficult to traverse, very difficult to walk. This is very smooth. And it's the incline as we head towards the future goes up, right? So you're not done, right? There's still more advancement that needs to be done, but you've progressed. But it won't be easy at all. It is going to be harder, likely, than your current position. 6 Swords is about adapting, and adapting potentially to difficult circumstances. It's about moving on, and it may be a moving on that is very necessary and could maybe be healing, advancing, and represent growth, but it's not going to be easy. I mean, swords are harder to deal with than coins. But maybe in the long run, it could pay off more. It also could suggest, swords are one of the most interesting suits, I think, because they represent conflict, right? Swords are something we can hurt each other with. But they also represent the mind, and they represent intelligence, the intellect, right? And 6 is a number of harmony. So another way of reading this would be a harmony of mind, right? The Fool. Oh, we always love to see the Fool. So, would it be foolish to go off and leave your current position and try something new? Well, maybe a little, but it's not always bad to be foolish, because the fool is starting a new journey and can certainly fall, right? We know that. You can see the tentacle here grabbing the leg like he's about to trip and doesn't even know it. But if he doesn't do this, if he doesn't start this new journey, he's never going to end up anywhere else, right? So let me do a quick summary, and then I'll answer the question. So in the current position, you're the Knight of Cups. You're looking back, you're trying to establish that your current situation is good for you, or that it's at least working. But you may be relying too much on feelings and fantasizing, creating a fantasy that isn't totally in line with reality, because reality is unstable. It's probably not giving you all of the resources you need, and there may have been a change lately in the conditions, in the working conditions. You need to make a decision using your mind. Don't rely for this decision as much on your emotions. Be cutting about it. Be strong about it. You chose strength, after all. Also, justice can be very slow, I should add. Justice doesn't make a snap judgment. Justice is not impulsive. So while you should make a judgment based on your thoughts, on facts, on what you know, don't make it rashly. Be certain. Were you to try a new position, you're likely to level up from a knight to a queen, to give you some more power, more stability. But it's going to be hard, right? So if you're comfortable, even if not necessarily comfortable in a material sense, but if you're comfortable in the sense that it's okay, it's working, you're used to it. This Six of Swords is saying you're not going to be used to it anymore, right? But there will be the opportunity to grow. And with the Fool, you might feel like you're bumbling about. You might feel like you're going to trip. You might fall. But you'll have this staff to help pull you up again, right? And here we don't have that. The only figures that have the staff are the Queen and the Fool. So, to answer the question, should you keep your current job or look for a new one? The answer would be, I think there's a lot of opportunity to grow in a new position, but you'd want to not make that decision impulsively. You'd want to really think about it carefully, gather information, make sure you know what you're doing, and recognize it's probably going to be pretty uncomfortable. You'll need to be strong to move from the old position to the new one, but it likely is the right choice to make an effort to adapt to a new journey. Okay, I will leave it there. I hope you enjoyed this reading. I hope that it gives you a new perspective on your current circumstances. As always, you should make your own good decisions based on what you know. If you enjoyed this video, if you got something out of it, I'd greatly appreciate a like and subscribe. Let me know in the comments. Does this open up any paths for you? Does this open up any ideas for you? What do you get out of this? Thanks so much, everybody, and I'll see you in your next reading. Hello, Group 2, and welcome to your reading. You chose the Selenite. Here it is. And the Sun card as your significator. So I've shuffled the deck, And I'm going to continue shuffling now for a moment while I think about the question and the Sun card. And the question, of course, is should you stay at your current job, or are you at a crossroads? Should you start planning for a new job? Should you try to leave, look for a new one? That is the question we're working with. And what I'll do is place the significator in the center, and then I'm going to lay out 3 cards on either side of it. 3 on the left will represent a snapshot of your current position, where you're at right now. And then the 3 on the right will represent what you should consider, things to think about, if you were to think about leaving, trying to find another job, okay? So those will be our 2 parts to the spread. And then if we need to pull more cards, we can always pull more cards until I feel like I've given a satisfactory answer to the question. Okay, so we'll put the Sun in the center. And I feel like this just needs a little more. Okay, there. Okay, these are ready to go. So, the Sun. Knight of Coins, you're a knight. You're making progress. You're doing the thing. You're working very steadily. You might be bored. You might feel like the work is very repetitive. You're doing the same thing all the time. It feels like it's going very slow. Is this day ever going to end? Going on and on. But you are working towards something you value. It could be money, or it could just be a job that, maybe you're working with people you really like, or you're doing, maybe you just really like the actual job itself. You're making progress. You're moving forward, looking forward towards something you feel like you can invest in, something that's valuable. But you're on a frog, so it's going kind of slow, or maybe it feels like it hops. Maybe it feels like it moves forward and then it just sort of sits there for a while and nothing happens, and then maybe it hops again. It's uneven, perhaps. 7 cups. So maybe you feel like there are lots of options out there and you just have no idea which one to pick, and so you're frozen. There's all these different things that you could do, all these different places you could go. It could be with regard to this job, like maybe there are different ways of advancing in this job and each of them seems fulfilling, and so you don't know which way to turn. That's one interpretation of the 7 of Cups. Another way of reading it is each of the cups is a person, and you're here in the middle, maintaining your individuality and your own uniqueness so that you can kind of stand out. But for that reason, you also don't really totally fit in. So does that ring true for you in your current position? Like, because you kind of stand out, you don't really feel like you fit in. And, depending on your personality, that could work or not. If you're a coins person, coins people like to belong, usually, right? They are people who favor security, stability. They want to be a part of the group. They probably don't like to feel like they stand out. And so I would consider that maybe you don't feel like you really fit in here, and that is something that kind of bothers you. As opposed to like if this were a batons court card. Well, batons might be more comfortable standing out. They like to be excited, stimulated. They like to show off and perform a little bit more. And so they might be more comfortable having the 7 of Cups underneath them. But with the Knight of Coins, it makes me wonder, like, do you feel kind of like an outcast in your current position? Like you're not totally integrated with the rest of the group. Okay, well, the Tower has come up. And so at the root of your current position, we've got the Tower. We probably don't want to see that here because the Tower is telling us this is all built on a shaky foundation and that there's likely to be a big revelation coming, which is going to knock everything down. A big change, a big shift. Depending on the severity of it, it's potentially something that could be rebuilt. This card doesn't have to necessarily indicate total destruction of something, although it can mean that. Like the place goes out of business, right? Or something like that. But it can also mean there's just a really big shift happening. Like, I don't know, if it's a seasonal business, that the end of one season is coming and the beginning of a new one is coming. And so everything is going to get rearranged, and that's going to destabilize everything, at least for a while. It's going to feel like you're flying through the air, like you're upside down, like you can't get your bearing, like you're not sure what to do. You're not sure how to keep your feet steady on the ground. And for someone who is being represented by the Knight of Coins, they would probably really not like that. Knight of Coins is someone who wants stability, structure, solid ground under their feet. And they don't want to stand out. And they're probably not totally fitting in, and the ground under their feet is about to give way. Or maybe it has given way already, depending on the particular context that you find yourself in. So let's look at what appears on the right side of the spread. Oh, goodness. King of Cups. So if you were to start a new position, look for a new job, you would become a king rather than a knight. You would advance, and instead of riding a toad, you'd be sitting on a sturdy stone block with a delicious latte in your hand, looking to the future with your hand on your hip. That looks pretty comfortable. So I won't comment further yet on that. Oh dear. But underneath it is the devil. So we've got the devil on one side, but the Tower on the other. So, a few words before I pull the final card. We know that the devil can mean being chained, feel like you're stuck in bondage, unable to get free, quite uncomfortable, chained to something that you really can get free of if you want to, but you can't see that or don't want to see it. Because the devil can be a lot of fun. This can be, I think that the devil card represents not the happiest, but maybe the most fun card, the most exciting, the most intriguing, the most enchanting card in the deck. And that can be great. The trouble is, if you come upon this card, you've got to be careful about getting stuck with it, right? The devil can be fun for a little while, but if you find yourself trapped with the devil, you're in trouble. I also notice the devil is number 15 of the major arcana, and the Tower is number 16. So, I wonder if by going forward, you're actually going back, right? Here, you're at 16, you think you're going forward, but are you actually going back to 15, where the next card after the devil, chronologically, is the Tower, right? Is the Tower just coming again? You think you're going somewhere else, but it turns out you end up back where you were. I do wonder that. So, starting this new position, or looking for a new position, a new job, might be a whole lot of fun, exciting, show you things you've never seen before. But we've got to remember, one way of reading the devil makes bad contracts. And the devil lies and manipulates too. So it might be a great time for a while, but are you going to get stuck, or are you going to end up even further back than you were to begin with? Let's place another card. Two of Coins. Duality, juggling, hustling. It is an even number, and it is more coins. So if we're thinking about this in terms of money, which of course we always are if we're talking about a job, the Knight of Coins is looking at one coin, and here we've got underneath everything 2. So we've doubled our money, so to speak. And that is pretty promising. So let me answer the question. Should you stay in your current position or leave to a new one? And obviously you have to make this decision for yourself. I'm trying to give you things to think about as you make that decision. This is not an easy decision. There's not a clear, yes, you should do this, or yes, you should stay there. This is complicated. If you stay, things are likely to be unstable and a little uncomfortable, at least a little. You're standing out. And there's no indication that that is likely to change. And so you have to decide, is that something that you can put up with or not? If you decide to leave and move forward, you're likely to make quite a bit of advancing. At least it's going to appear that way, from Knight to King. And there's going to be what appears like more stability, right? You'll be able to feel like you can look towards the future with more structure. But underneath that, you might actually be trapped in something. It might seem like you've gone forward, but that's not necessarily going to last. You may have made a deal with the devil, so to speak, and you're getting more money, right? It still isn't very much, though, I have to say. If there were 10 coins here, then I'd think, oh, this is a lot of money. 2 is better than 1, but it isn't very many. Although I guess if you've only got 1, doubling it to 2 might seem really good. So there are certainly advantages here, but you need to be very careful, right? You need to be very careful about whether this new job that only is going to give you 2 coins is going to be sufficient. I think what I'd like to do is pull one more card to clarify, and I'm going to put it here because the King of Cups is looking at something, right? And let's see, what are they looking at? They're looking at 7 coins. So if we go back to the issue of money, the King is looking to the future at 7 coins, although they've only got 2 at the moment, which is more than the one that they had. So I think that this job could potentially provide more material resources, like money, but this may not come to be, right? This is what the King's looking at. It doesn't necessarily mean it's actually what's going to be there. It might be the kind of situation where the devil has promised 7 coins, but is actually only giving 2, which again is more than 1. So, should you leave the job? Well, if you can't stand the instability and uncomfortableness of the current position, it would be worth considering taking this step. But don't think that your bright sun is going to be shining for you with no problems. The bright sun reveals the devil. And underneath the devil, we've got more money and we've got an advancement, or at least it looks that way. but it's not going to be everything probably that you're promised. Okay, I'll leave it there. I hope this gives you something to consider, something to think about, a different point of view, a different perspective on your current situation. If you found this valuable, if you got something out of it, I'd very much appreciate a like and subscribe, or tell me in the comments what you thought. And I will end there. I'm excited to see you in your next reading. Hello, group 3, and welcome to your reading. You chose the flower agate and the emperor. I've been shuffling the deck, and I'm going to continue shuffling it now while I think about the question and its relationship to the emperor card. So the question is, should you leave your current job? Should you look for something new and different? Or does it make more sense to stay where you're currently at? And what I'll do is lay out 3 cards on either side of the emperor. And the cards on the left will indicate your current position, where you're at now, your current job, right? And give us a snapshot, a little picture of it. And then I'll lay out 3 on the right, and those will indicate what you should consider, what you should think about if you were to look for a new job, look for a new position, try something new, take another path. So let me just finish shuffling. Make sure these are where we want them. Okay, here we go. Okay, these are ready. So let's lay out our first card. The King of Cups. Okay, so you are feeling like a king in your current position. That is interesting, because if you feel like a king, why would you be asking the question of whether or not you should leave your job? Now, the first thing that comes to mind is, because it's the King of Cups, the King of Cups is someone who's very much in touch with their emotions, and they have knowledge of them, power over them, control over their emotions. They're also someone who's very creative, and their creativity is directly connected to their emotional intelligence. But because they're a king and they have to go out in the world and they're public facing and they have to interact in like professional ways, they've probably had to give up some of, or a lot of, their creativity. And they might resent that. They might resent that. So maybe being a king isn't what would make you happy, because you've had to give something up in order to attain that position. 8 of Cups. Well, the 8 of Cups makes me think of leaving behind a situation that is stable but unfulfilling. There it is. So 8s I read as a number of movement, of progress, of organization. And cups are what fulfills us, what makes us happy, what nourishes us. And with the 8, we're thinking of moving on, right? We can see too, the king is looking forward, looking to the future, like what comes next? There's something more, right? This can't be it. There has to be something else, right? And because they're feeling unfulfilled, stable, but unfulfilled. They're thinking of moving on, right? Like they feel like they need to go on a journey. They need to explore something else because they're not being nourished. The king is not being nourished creatively in the way, emotionally, right? In the way that they had hoped that being a king would give them that. And then they find out actually they have to give it up to be a king. So they thought they were going to get one thing, and it's not at all what they'd thought it would turn into. A page of batons. Ooh. So this could be a message about your career. This could be a message about your creativity. The two creative suits are batons and cups, right? Fire and water. And we've got those here, right? We've even, the emperor, the significator you chose, even has a kind of baton in their hand, in their right hand. This is really interesting because it makes me think you're a king sitting down in a stable position, but it's unfulfilling, and so you're thinking of leaving, and so maybe you need to be a page. Maybe you need to look for a message about your career that would inspire you to go exploring, light a spark underneath you that would inspire you to go off and try something different that maybe could be fulfilling because the current situation is stable and organized and there's maybe lots of people involved in it, but it's not giving you everything you'd hoped that being a king would give you. And so the only way out of that would be to give up your status and start over and be a page again, which is really exciting. I mean, could be really exciting because I think of the page as the explorer, right? Looking out at new horizons. But they don't have anything, right? They've got this staff. They've got nothing to sit on, to rest on. They've got a lot of walking to do ahead of them. And that's not easy, although it might be exciting and maybe would be fulfilling. So let's pull some more cards. Okay. The Knight of Batons. So this is pretty clear. You're a king who's thinking about leaving, exploring, becoming a page. And if you were to do that, what would happen? You'd be able, over time, to progress to a knight again. But not a king, okay? I mean, we'll see what the next two cards show us. But your status in your new position, if you were to leave and go to another job, would be nowhere near where you're at now, right? You wouldn't have the stability, you wouldn't have the respect, you wouldn't have earned the position, the power yet. So you're not sitting pretty and stable. You're on a big snail, right? Trying to keep things going. Maybe moving one direction, but looking in another. And this will not be easy. But it will be fiery. It could be a whole lot of fun. And there is a sense of growth in that we're moving from the page who's walking to the knight who has not a horse in this instance, but a snail to ride. So it would be, there's a lot of potential for growth, but underneath it are 7 swords. That is scary. The 7 of Swords is sometimes known as the card of tears. So there may be some crying, which, sometimes people cry tears of joy. But more often than not, they're crying, not tears of joy, tears of grief. This can represent deception. This can represent a failure to adapt. This can represent being very focused or having to be very focused. It can mean that other people don't understand why you're doing the thing that you're doing. They're looking at you like, what do you mean you're going to give up your current position and go back to being a page with the hopes of turning that into being a knight? What are you talking about? That doesn't make any sense. You're a king. Are you crazy? And that causing a lot of conflict. And who knows what circumstances are going to bring. Things go up, things go down. The Wheel of Fortune. Well, that is not as certain as we might like to see. So the Wheel of Fortune represents changing circumstances. It represents whoever's on top is going to fall down, and whoever's at the bottom eventually will rise up again, but things turn and turn. This can mean finding a rhythm, right? Finding a cycle. It can also mean things happening again and again and again. So, what I would hope to see here would be like a whole bunch more cups, maybe. Like the 10 of Cups would be really fun to see on this side. Or maybe some money, right? Because if we're talking about jobs, it would be nice to see a bunch of coins in the future, because even if they're not emotionally fulfilling, they give us something valuable that we can use. But instead, what we're seeing is someone who is leaving behind their position of being king in order to explore, set off on something new, which they will be able eventually to make progress in and do some growing, but they're not going to be back where they were before in terms of achievement and condition and status. Nobody's understanding them. There may even be deception involved. They're having to be extremely focused instead of daydreaming about leaving behind things that aren't totally making them feel fulfilled. And all of this is totally subject to circumstance, right? There are things totally outside your control that will determine what's going to happen if you were to leave that position. And that could be dangerous, if you are the emperor and you're showing up as the king, are you really going to be happy being a page who maybe through deception, focus, and circumstance turns into a knight again? So I'm going to answer the question based on the cards I see here, and I'm going to say, is there any way in your current position you could rearrange things to make it a little more fulfilling to you so that you're not constantly thinking about leaving? I wonder perhaps if there are too many people involved in what you're working on, like too many different emotions and perspectives that are making you dream about exploring other career options. But my suggestion, based exclusively on these cards, would be strongly consider staying where you're at, because the future would be very uncertain. If this is really just totally unbearable and you're willing to take the big risk that you are not going to have total control over whether it succeeds, that's what this means, no matter how focused you are. There could be deception that you don't know about. You're on the wheel. What goes up goes down. What goes down goes up again, and you aren't going to be able to control the wheel. You can't. So if you're willing to take that risk, it is may be worth considering because there is a sense of progress if this is totally unbearable. But if it were me, I guess I'd say being a king is a really comfortable place to be in. And so you should seriously consider, is there any way you can make the current situation more fulfilling rather than in this moment giving it all up to be a page again? Okay, I'm going to leave the reading there. I hope that this gives you some perspective on your situation, helps you think about things differently. If you got something out of this, if it was interesting or entertaining or helped you think, I'd very much appreciate a like and subscribe to give me some feedback. Let me know that you enjoyed this, appreciated this, and that I should keep doing them. I will end there, and I look forward to seeing you in your next reading.